Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey, everyone. It's Duncan here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where we chat with founders and leaders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. And I'm so excited about today's episode. We have a really visionary founder here for you today. This episode is brought to you by Firebelly, where we help brands establish authentic social connections with their audiences. If you'd like to learn more, go to firebellymarketing.com. And so today, with no further ado, we have Alan Laws. He's the founder of Laws Whiskey House. And this is a man with a lot of passion. As I was researching his work, all the interesting things about why he chose to do this, where he's doing it. But at the bottom of it all is a desire to create uncompromising whiskey and a community around it. So with no further ado, welcome, Alan.
Well, thanks, Duncan. Appreciate you having me on. It should be fun.
Thanks for talking about it. We love people with vision and also love a mission. And so I guess let's start somewhat at the beginning. How did you decide to get into whiskey?
Well, I love it. First of all, I can say, passionate about whiskey, blah, 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 but it's really much more than that. It's an obsession. So been obsessed with this since I was pretty young. Grew up in Canada, so 16 was where it started for me. That's what I like. I don't really like beer, don't like wine, but whiskey was my thing. So all the way along through, going to school and then professional career, and it's always part of that in some way. And at some point, I said, I don't really want to do what I'm doing here anymore, and I wanted to do something that was, tangible and make something, right? I think a lot of other folks get into that vibe too. So so this was the thing that I chose, and with the support of my family, and they said, yeah, let's do this. So we've been doing this for we're almost finished our 13th year here, in about 3 or 5 weeks we'll be through that. So it's been a while. We started on this journey, and it was I expected it to take about 20 years, so we're just over half, and it's been hard and fun, but it's still real work.
That's definitely true. And, it's interesting. I'm sure there's a role for grain, there's a role for water and climate, and we'll get into all of that. But really at the bottom of this all is your mantra, which is there are no shortcuts.
Yeah.
So I know you waited a long time to sell your first bottle because you wanted to make sure the quality was a certain way. How does that no shortcuts play into everything that you do?
It's one of the mantras that we try to instill in the village. That's what we call our company. It's a village of folks that are passionate, obsessed, and very into what they're doing, whether they're, a brand ambassador or whether they're on the production floor or in sales. They'll bring something to the table that's pretty enthusiastic. So these are things that came from, my upbringing. So we have a couple mantras, and one of them is there are no shortcuts. And that's really, I got that from playing hockey as a youth, and all the way through. It's very apropos to what we do and the teams that we build. And then we also have craft over commodity, quality over quantity, and whiskey above all. So those are our two main ones that we always refer to when we get to, hey, we're going to do this. Well, that doesn't sound right. That sounds like a shortcut. We don't do that. And we were very interested in doing this the right way. The Yoda that I had and all this is in the Bourbon Hall of Fame in Kentucky. And in the very beginning, when I first met him, which was by chance, he said, well, son, if you're going to do this right, I might be willing to help you out a little here. And I'd do some consulting. And so that's how we got, I think, what I like to say is this is what added the last element, which is the soul to Laws Whiskey House.
That's incredible. And amidst this journey, I'm so excited about this part. Amidst this journey, and I want to talk all about the whiskey and all that stuff, but there's some exciting stuff going on over there, right?
There is.
You got a big thing coming up.
So we have a very cool thing about to happen in the next 4 or 5 weeks. We got a possession date, but that'll slide, but of June 28th, but we'll see if we get close to that anyways. But we have a brand new tasting room, and it's a really cool architectural design. It's attached to the distillery. It's like brutalist style, and we'll have a cool education or brand just interaction, I guess.
Yeah.
And then like a cool cocktail bar and a place to, learn more about our whiskeys in different ways, like in cocktails or in flights or those kind of things. So a pretty immersive brand experience. And it's taken us a long time. It took us, 4 years to get the permits to build this building. It's tough to do things in the city of Denver. And then 2 years to build it. And it was supposed to take 8 months, but COVID and supply chains and, contractors going bankrupt, these kind of things are all, this is all part of our journey.
All the obstacles that you have to just kind of overcome in your journey as a founder and leader. The tasting room sounds super cool, but I know that you are going to have what you call the whiskey church and the whiskey Bible. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we've always had since we opened to the public and we sold our first, bottle of whiskey. That's about almost 10 years ago now. We didn't sell anything. We didn't make clear spirits. We only make whiskey. So we didn't sell anything for 3.5 years after we started. So, but after that, we soon found an interest and a need to show what we do in tours. So we said, okay, well, tour, we'll start it here. But it wasn't just good to have a room, and we had to have something a little bit more, like just something that's different. So we have a whiskey church or a chapel. Someone once called it a chapel. This isn't really a church, like more like a chapel. I'm like, okay. Thanks for that. And it's to really set the tone for what you're about to learn and your time at Outlaws Whiskey House, to be immersed and, pay homage to whiskey. So whiskey church. And then the new facility, we have a very cool church with a 2-story Gothic window. And, it's a great interaction. Yeah. Everyone who comes to Denver will want to come spend an afternoon at Outlaws Whiskey House.
And, I think that's the kind of immersive experience that, discriminating consumers and discriminating, whiskey forward thinkers, I think is one of your phrases, would be looking for. They're looking for someone that treats not just the consumption, but the production, the creation of whiskey with an air of sacredness.
Yes, it is. It is exactly that. And it should be, we often bug some of our friends who own distilleries too. And they're like, oh, well, we make whiskey. I'm like, well, you don't really. And they're like, yeah, we do. I said, no, if you don't make it every day, you don't make whiskey. So to us, it's a little bit of, it's our funny joke. We'll say to folks, it's like, we're very focused. And we focus on that. We're not trying to make 10 different things. We're making just whiskey and in different varietals. But staying focused gives us a different attention, I think, that comes through in interacting with people from Laws.
I mean, and I think it's the kind of price that you've paid to make it a great experience for other people. Now, even the sourcing of the grains, you're very particular, or should I say persnickety, about what kind of grain you use.
Yeah, so this started at the beginning. It was a local thing, right? Local grain that gives, something to the product that you can't get from other places. And I'm a real big believer in that whiskey has terroir, and that whiskey is defined by where it comes from. People that make it for sure, but also where the grains come from. We're a value-added farming product. And, so we want to taste like where we're from. Just like in Scotland, you have like Speyside, you have the Highlands, you have the Lowlands, you have all these places, and they define the whiskeys that are made there. And I think that's happening in America. And for Colorado, we're trying to define that. So we're using heirloom variety grains from like 2 family farms. And corn's grown out in Burlington and the east, and the small grains are grown in a mountain valley in San Luis Valley in kind of southwestern Colorado. And these things all contribute to it. The soil conditions, and it isn't just, the varietal either. It's the conditions in which they're grown. That's what gives it the terroir. The varietal is something, and then the dirt that it's in is something else. And then the processes that you use and inviting in the environment around you. And then when we age stuff in Colorado, it's considerably different than in other parts of the country, given that we're right against the Rocky Mountains and have tremendous barometric pressure swings that make our barrels sort of pump like a heart, and we get a lot out of the barrels.
Well, I mean, it's super interesting, right? I mean, I know that one of the things that, I'll share with you is that in my search, I'm a fanatic about tea. No milk in my tea, just, tea. I've been traveling in northeastern India to find these small farms. And what I loved about your story and what I resonated with personally is that a lot of these kinds of operations, they're very high craft operations. They're doing things in a very particular way. But also, I think these are your words, it's finicky, right? And
Yeah,
so big buyers will not even buy from them because they can't produce at the volume, that the
yeah.
big companies want for consistency and, supply chain minimums and so on. It's like, that's all bullshit. What you're missing with those kind of fake criteria is you're missing that unique individuality.
Yeah, like there is a point where we would not be able to make more whiskey, right? We're pretty far away from that right now. But like the farm only grows so much. And we've even had discussions with the farmers like, well, what if we ever got to that point? And they're like, well, we know the valley and we would go get land that we think they know all the characteristics of it. And like this area, we would look to either have someone else grow it, or we would grow it and lease the land or buy the land. And so we have that for, but it does matter, like the land where it comes from. We know the fields that these things come from. So taking it right back to the land is important. And again, scale doesn't necessarily get you, quality. So, craft over commodity is a big deal to us because I think the craft side of it still matters. We only make whiskey using pot stills. We don't use column stills. And that's not to say column still whiskey is bad. It's more efficient and you can do a lot more and it makes great whiskey. Clearly Kentucky, almost everything is that. And, but we wanted to do it more in a traditional sense and get more out of the grain. So when we're cooking it, we're getting some of that. When we're fermenting it at open air, inviting in the environment, we get that. And then we're going to cook it twice. And so it's going to get stripped in a pot still. So it's going to spend a lot of time on that grain as we coax the alcohol out. And then finally in the final finishing run, when we're shaping the flavor profile with making cuts at certain points, is all these things are important. And we have that. It's not a machine doing it. It's not a computer program. It's a human who's tasting things, smelling things, making sensory judgments. And as a team, we do that all together, and we agree on what those elements are. And so everyone who runs the equipment is the master distiller at Lost Whiskey House, and you're accountable to the team, and you're accountable to me. And so you're not just turning some knobs and say, yeah, whatever.
I mean, it's interesting. If I can just take a step back, I loved what you were saying, and I think you all call. I mean, the proper word is terroir, right? And
Yeah.
All the different components of where you are that impact how that whiskey turns out. And just for the nerd in all of us, talk about that air again. Like, what role does the air have?
Well, at first we're a mile high, so it's thinner air. It's dry here. We're an upper mountain desert. So in aging, we have these barometric pressure swings. So people, oh, well, pressure changes here too. Yeah, but ours change during the day and in a very erratic way. So when something's in a barrel, the barrel breathes, but it doesn't breathe like you or I breathe. It's very restricted respiration. And so when the pressures change that much, it forces the liquid into the wood and then pulls it out. So it forces it deeper in the wood than just temperature would. So these are really important. So temperature, we're high mountain desert, it's hot here. We have these barometric pressure swings, so we're a mile high, thinner air. So we lose more water to the angels than we do alcohol. So our proof rises over time, which has implications for how it ages in the flavors it pulls from the wood. And then also, that we're cutting it when it comes out of off the still, going into the barrel. We're using Eldorado Springs water, which is going to give it some minerality and some mouthfeel to it, and it's an important part of it. And then you go right back to the dirt, and the dirt is, an ancient seabed is what it was. So it has all these different characteristics that make the plants react differently. So all these things in the environment affect the final thing that comes in the bottle of Vaz that you buy.
And I think you called it it's in the style of it, according to the tradition of great American whiskeys. And I wanted to ask you about the bonded in bottle and the history behind that.
Yeah. So our whole goal was, Kentucky makes great whiskey, and that's where 95 or 99% of American whiskey is made. That in Tennessee with Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey, that's the bulk of what people know about American whiskeys, right? So we wanted to say, well, that's a great history, and they do that exceptionally well. So why don't we do something different and add to this fabric that is, historically a great story of American whiskey and how it, affected governments and everything else, right? Used to be 50% of the tax revenue for the U.S. government way back, and which brought about the Bottle and Bond Act, which, is still exists today on the books. And it's a very high standard in which to make whiskey. And the reason it existed is it's the very first consumer protection law in U.S. history. And it was because they were getting all this tax revenue for it. And people were going, okay, well, I can just take some wood grain alcohol, which would kill you, and put prune juice and tobacco in it and get the colors to it and then sell it. So the government was like, hey, it's hurting people, but more so, we're not getting any tax revenue for that. And so we're going to put this bill into place that protects consumers. So the good stuff is the bonded stuff. We'll put a revenue guy at the rick houses. So in order to get barrels out to get bottled, you have to have the right requisitions. And it was essentially bottled under U.S. government supervision. And so that made for them. So fast forward to today. Why does that matter? A little different situation than back then, but it's still important because for us, it plants the flag, because you can't be bonded if you didn't make it. And if you didn't make it to those high standards, which are the highest standards in the world for whiskey. So it's straight whiskey standards, which are very high standards as well here in the US. And then this is on top of it. And the main differences are that the barrels you use in a batch have to be made in a 6-month season. So either January to June or July to December. So all the barrels have to come from those of that year. And they, have to be aged a minimum of 4 years. Ours is between 7 and 8 now is what we typically use. And it has to be made at a single DSP or single distillery by a single distillery. Like we have a team, but it still translates. It's on one. There's no one person that makes this stuff. There's teams that make these things. So, and it has to be bottled at 100 proof. And those are these are pretty high standards. So one is the highest problem that we could see is that, you have to have pretty uniform production standards. Otherwise the barrels are all going to taste different. So it's going to be very tough to make a batch out of those barrels you made in that 6-month period. Our batches are between 25 to 40 barrels for the bonded. But most of versus our regular, flagship brand, which are, up to 100 barrels. So there's a much more selection that goes into this. And be pretty particular, and had to have planned way ahead because we've only been around for, like I said, 13 years, and we have 10, 12-year-old whiskeys on our shelves too. But this is our kind of every year at this time we put out our bonded stuff. So we will go with bonded rye, San Luis Valley rye, bottle and bond 4-grain bourbon, and bottle and bond Centennial wheat whiskey, which is also very delicious. So this is something we put out every year. And again, we're trying to keep we're keeping to these standards because we think it means something.
I mean, it's a very, I think, holistic, okay, let's be honest, obsessive in a good way. It's obsessive. I mean, I think you all talk about religion. I mean, it is filled with spirituality in a way, and just compliance, I think, to very high ideals at every step of the way. I mean, everything you're saying, I mean, I've talked to whiskey people before, and it's usually hey, we're doing this one thing differently. But in your case, I mean, the whole damn thing is filled with this quest for making the best possible whiskey. How do you all, is that a team approach to all of this,
Yeah.
How do you infuse your team with that kind of passion?
Well, you don't compromise, right? We, at the beginning, we were all cash financed too. So I had the luxury of having a bunch of cash from working on Wall Street for 15 years. So, but I don't have any more. It's all in barrels. But the idea was to don't be in a position where someone has to tell you or says to you, hey, you have to do this because you need revenue now, or you need this now. And so if we don't compromise, then you can make the best thing you can possibly do. We actually, another mantra we have is every day is a tryout. So every day is tryout. So it means sometimes it doesn't work. Somebody had a bad day, didn't work, something went wrong, but tomorrow you start again and you reach, to raise the bar again.
Man, that's like infused with Buddhism. I love it. Every day is a new day.
It is like, this is it. Again, that's a hockey thing too. Like, you have a good game. Tomorrow's another tryout. Like, get on the ice. Like, it's all these things come from being ingrained in it as a child for so many years. It's a cult of sorts.
And the fact that you've been able to bring all these people together, and how amazing. I don't think you can do it if it was just you leading it. You need all those people and village around you.
Yes, but that's the kind of people we attract. And like most folks you don't hear me use the word I very much. It's we. And if you buy into that, you do well here. If you don't, you probably don't last very long here. But to live the word, so to speak, it's like, we don't compromise. If it comes down to this, like, no, we're not doing that. Well, but it's better because I'm like, no, we're not doing that. We only do business with folks that we like. And if it costs more, it costs more. And we want to make sure that, we treat the people we as vendors and everything the same way that we would want to be treated. And if we're not, then we'll go find someone else to do it with. And they can see that, like, everyone is empowered that way, and it becomes self-fulfilling after a while.
I mean, it really is. It really is something different. I was going to ask you, how do you take care of yourself?
I don't do very well. I could do better, a lot better, according to certain people around me. But no, I try to go to the gym. I walk the dogs a lot. I love that. I haven't got on my bike yet this year, but I'll get on my bike and ride some miles, and just something to get outside. Got to be outside. Get outside. Life is not very rewarding when you're indoors all the time. So try to do something.
The beautiful part of that is that there is a lot of, that's the way people in Colorado kind of think. I'm in Indianapolis, so you don't hear people say that. Like, I got to be outside. And so, I mean, I used to work with a guy that said, I don't like outside, which was shocking to me. Yeah. So, I mean, that's super cool. So a little bit more about, I guess, with what are some of your big dreams at the moment? What do you this is a culmination of such a long time. This is going to happen. The tasting room's going to open. That you're going to take it to the next level. What are you thinking about next?
Yeah, the next, so this is a big step for us because we've never had this before. A lot of folks start smaller places that are really so it's really a cocktail bar with a distillery in the background. Have always been wholesale manufacturer, like, first. And then we had a small kind of interactive thing that you could do, like a little bottle shop and stuff, but it wasn't like this. So this is the next step for us. It's kind of like a foray into hospitality a little bit. I guess it will be. I don't know much about that. We've hired someone to like manage that and who understands the hospitality side of things. So we, that's our next step. And then, we're gonna look for, in the next year or so, to look to step up again. And so we're probably gonna look for another strategic partner to help us do what we continue to do, but do it at a better scale. And there's only so much you can do. Small brands like us, it's very tough to grow outside your home state, and it's expensive and typically not something you can afford for a very long time. And it takes a long time. With certain products, probably you can, have a hockey stick up, shoot up, but whiskey takes a lot of time. So if you can grow 10% a year or something like that, some people can grow faster than that, but typically they probably don't make it. You buy it from someone else and put it in the bottle. But for us, it takes a lot of time to do that. And we're probably looking for in the future. Well, we continue to do it right now to find the right partner. Again, cultural combination matters a huge deal to us. So it has to be the right partner. And then, again, it'd be great to have other brands with you, not necessarily in whiskey, but in other small brands that stand for something. It would be cool to be in a group of them.
And I wanted to congratulate you for your recognition for the 4 grains bottled and bond bourbon, making it to the Robb Report 50 best bourbons of the 21st century. And I know those kinds of things aren't to be taken lightly. You're competing with everybody on that. Not just
that's a great. Thank you for mentioning. That's like we want to be the brand of this generation, right? Like that's a goal of ours. Like I grew up on Jack Daniels and Wild Turkey, and they were great for that. But like, the 20, 30-year-olds now are looking for their own brands, not necessarily their father's or their grandfather's brands. So, and I think there are a number of them out there that I think fit to that and appeal to them on the basis of what the brand stands for. And that's what we want to be. We want to be part of that. But yeah, that was a great honor this year. And we also, our 4-grain cask strength won world's best small batch from Whiskey Magazine. So, and that was shocking to us because, we've done well in the category outside of Kentucky. And so we've done pretty well in that in the past. And we won that category. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. We're really happy. And then 20 minutes later, they're, oh, the world category gets announced tonight too. And we beat like 4 roses on that, which was shocking to me. But that's, it's a honor, and it's to all of our team members. They're pretty proud of that, and they deserve to be, right? So it's good stuff.
And congratulations to you. I think it's interesting, right? When you're doing something, sometimes as a leader and as the founder, the visionary, just to be able to do it is winning. That's how I think. I think that's how you like. Fuck it, I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I'm paying the price, and in your case, it's like that you're doing it with a complete focus on quality and the experience. So I think where I was going with all this is that the award, it's nice because it's like, hey, I know that I know it's good, but God damn it, some of the people that are the best in the world also think it's really good.
Yeah, and we get to say things like, but we don't really take a knee to who goes, oh, well, Kentucky has that. Yeah, they do. And it's great. But we're just as, we have world-class whiskey as well. It's made different place. It's made in traditional style. It's made from, heirloom variety grains that are not grown for yield and not the cheapest thing, like 2 to 3 times what we pay, that 2 to 3 times more than commodity prices. And the reason for that is we want to make sure these farms exist, and family farms are under, constant duress in this country from mechanized sort of thing. So this keeps them alive. It keeps people on the farm. It keeps people's lives the way they want to run, how they want to run them. And that feels good too.
And I think that, you're bringing your ethos, your culture into that, what makes Denver great. Denver is an amazing city. It's a Mile High city, so many amazing cultural things there. But to have that, I think, is a real feather in Denver's cap, to have this crazy Canadian guy who showed up and just is making world-class whiskey over there, better than world-class.
Yeah, well, I've been here a long time. So I became a U.S. citizen this time last year after being here for like 22 years. So we used to live in Brooklyn, New York. And then we moved out here like 15 years ago. And it's pretty nice. It's a beautiful place. It's an aspirational place. A lot of people want to come here, and it's pretty easy to see why when they do come. The mountains, and it's a great place. I fly fish quite a bit, and it's a lot more crowded than it used to be. but that's okay. It better be at a place where people are coming to than where people are leaving, I always say.
Wonderful. And let me ask a couple of other questions about you and what you love. Like, what's your drink? Your whiskey drink of choice.
I like bourbon. That's my favorite. So we do make a world-class rye that's very highly differentiated because of the heirloom variety that only grows in that valley, and it's lights out. And it's pretty much, I would say, if you polled everyone in the village, they would all say rye. But
really?
Yeah. And so, but for me, it's bourbon, and I like all kinds of bourbon. Like people go, oh, you only drink your, that's primarily what I drink because it doesn't cost me much. But,
it costs you a lot.
Well, It's all in the perspective.
Of course, of course, of course. That's
So, but I like I said, the Brown Foreman stuff, like Old Forester is a big fan. I'm a big fan of that. And like for Roses, some of the Beam stuff's good. Like the Heaven Hill stuff, Elijah Craig, and I like it all. Like it's all good, and it's different. You want to try something different. I always want to try something different. If I see something that I haven't had, I'm like, oh, I want to try that. And our local friends and competitors around here, we always try what they make and see how they're developing. And everyone's getting better, right? Even the big companies, they can't just rest in their laurels. They got to continue to innovate and pay a lot more attention to some of these things that maybe they didn't before. But they're certainly not like big beer was when craft beer came, because they are very dialed into brands and very dialed into social stuff, and they know they don't make crappy products. They make so we're competing against folks that are much bigger with much bigger budgets and make really good products. So, but there's always there's room underneath the umbrella, right? And when we're carving out our own thing, plowing our own road, if you will, and single green whiskeys like 100% rye whiskey, 100% wheat whiskey, things that they matter and they add to that fabric. And they may not be the biggest thing, and not everyone will get to try them, but they're out there if you want to seek them out. And as whiskey seekers or geeks, if you will, in whiskey, that's one of the funnest parts about being a whiskey drinker.
I mean, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. Anyone you want to give a shout out to? I think we should give a shout out to Whiskey Sisters Supply Company. Anyone else?
Absolutely, yes. So wonderful folks, and the Cody family farm, Jason and his brother Josh, who Colorado Malting Company is where we get small grains. But yeah, Stephanie and Felicia, like fantastic folks. There's our two grain suppliers right there. That's where we get all our grain from. So.
I mean, I think we should also tell people how to find you. Is it lawswhiskey.com?
Yeah, it is. lawswhiskeyhouse.com.
lawswhiskeyhouse.com, and they're on Instagram, and they
hashtag I think Laws Whiskey I think is the handles for those, and then on just our website is lawswhiskeyhouse.com. But yeah, find us there. Come to Denver, come visit, and by sometime in July, that new tasting will be open. If you come early, give us some latitude, because we've never done this before. So hopefully we won't screw anything up. But we're gonna try to get better every day. That's part of our culture, and we're gonna do our best and give you a good time.
It's amazing, right? That Kaizen approach, where you're like doing something better every day. As you said, every day you're failing or you're learning from it, whatever it is. It's like when you start living with that mindset, how much changes over time. It's a really wonderful way of looking at things. Alan, thank you for making the world better with your vision, and thank you for making the lives of whiskey drinkers that have discriminating tastes better. This is really making the world better. Thank you so much. And thank you for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. That's a great compliment. I don't know if we hit on all those cylinders all the time, but we're trying. And there's no sense doing something that's destructive. We want to be creative and build things up, build people up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for listening. Don't forget lawswhiskeyhouse.com or Laws Whiskey on Instagram and other social platforms. We've been chatting with Alan, and it's been a wonderful conversation. So much ethos, so much texture to the conversation. And thank you for sharing all this information with us. Thank you for making the world better. You've been listening to another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where we chat with founders and leaders of food and beverage brands, brought to you by Firebelly Marketing. This is your host, Duncan. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.